Hello Stampers, my name is Linda Bedinger and I'm an independent Stampin' Up! Demonstrator, and today I'd like to show you how I made this little box. I had promised in the next of my DIY series of how to figure out box dimensions to fit something that you have that I offered to do a flip top box, and this works for things that are taller and things that are shorter, and the difference is that the box, and I'm going to change the opening on this just a little bit today, the box opens up with a flip top this way. And what I've done, just for illustration, I used my Stampin' Mister here as my gift to fit in the bottle. Now this one is a little bit different than others that I've seen in that it has 3 flaps on the top, so it gives you a little bit better closure at the top of your box, and this ribbon I'm going to suggest to go around it to close it up. So let's go ahead and see what it takes to make this box. And what I have done is figured out what the diameter or the dimension across the circle of my bottle is, and when I set it on my measure tool here, I see that it is just shy of 1.5 inches. So we're going to say 1 1/2 inches in diameter. Okay, and then the length of the bottle, if I lay it across my grid paper this way, the bottle is just shy of 5 inches, so it is 5 inches in length. And there is enough of a margin on the either side of those dimensions that I'm not going to add any wiggle room. This bottle fits in here just perfectly and doesn't rattle around. Okay, so if we know that we are 1.5 inches at our base, that means that our sides, in order to contain the bottle, are going to be 1.5 inches. So we need that measurement 4 times. So it's 1 1/2 inches times 4 sides. And by that I mean this way, and across the top. So 4 times 1.5 equals 6 inches. Then we need plus 1/2 inch for a tab. And that tab, let's see if you can see that on the inside here, is right here, and it's that little 1/2 inch is what closes the box and holds the sides together. So we need 1/2 inch. So one of our measurements is now 6 1/2. Then we need the length of the bottle, which we know to be 5 inches, or 5 inches. Then we need 1.5 for the top and the bottom sides, if you will, so plus 3 inches. And then on this, I have a 5/8 inch closing tab here to fit inside the box and close. So we need 5 plus 3 plus 5/8 of an inch. So we need 8 5/8 of an inch. So there we have our paper size. Then is paper size is 6 1/2 by 8 5/8. Okay, so let's get started right there. And I'm going to make this out of the same color. You could do this, but I just love this paper out of that new Falling in Love series. And I did the box in Perfect Plum. So here I've got my little piece of Perfect Plum, and I've got my Stampin' trimmer here. So we are going to, let's see, oops, I've got it upside down here. stretch this out, and I'm going to measure this at 6.5. So there we go at 6.5. And then we need that to be 8 5/8. So this one can be done out of a piece of paper that is just a regular 8.5 by 11 sheet. So 8 5/8 here. Okay, the next thing we have to figure out is the scoring. So that first part of our calculations here was all about how big our paper needs to be. Now, to figure out the score lines on this, we're going to score the short side first. And on the short side, since this is going to be the length of our box, I need the 1/2 inch tab, which is going to help hold the box together. Let me get my cutting blade out of the way here. So 1/2 inch, and I'm going to turn it around so I can score it on this side here. And so there's my 1/2 inch. Now for my sides, we know that we need 1.5 inches. So you add your 1.5 to your 1/2, and you go to the 2 inch mark, and you make another score line right at 2 inches. Then you add 1.5 inches, and you go to your 3 inch score line. Then, I guess I better write these down as I go. 1/2 inch, then 2 inches, then 3 1/2 of an inch, and then the last score is going to be plus 1.5 or 5 inches. And when I get that set at 5 inches, I end up with the 4 side panels at 1.5 inches each, plus my 1/2 inch tab to put the box together. Now, scoring on the long side, we need the 5/8 inch flap. That is this piece here. So we need 5/8 of an inch. I always do my first short score on this side of the trimmer, just because it's easier, because I can make sure it's straight by setting the rest of the paper along the edge here. So 5/8 of an inch. Now I can turn it this way, and then we need 1.5 inches across here. So that makes our, let's see, 5/8 plus 1.5 inches is 2 1/8 inches. So I can take this to the 2 1/8 inch mark. And put the next score line in. And then we need the length of the bottle. We need 5 inches then. So setting our last score line at 5 inches, we have our next score line at 7 1/8. So 7 1/8. And what we have left is the 1.5 that we need to close up the box on the bottom. So there we have all of our score lines. Next, we need to do a little bit of trimming and cutting. So if this is the tab that closes the box, which will be at the back of the box, I don't want to burnish these score lines yet until I've done my cutting. If this is the one that holds the box together at the back, then this is the back flap or the back of the box that's going to close forward. And if that's the back, then this panel here, because this would be the back, a side, the front, and a side. So I am going to make a little pencil mark here that says this one is the back and this one is the front. And that'll help me orient the other things that I need to do here. Okay, So the very first thing I can do is cut away this little rectangle at the bottom of my box. And this is the bottom because this is that 5/8 inch piece that I cut at the top to be the closing flap. Okay, so here I'm going to trim this back just a bit, and then I'm going to cut up these flaps here up to that first score line across the bottom. Great. All right. Now, I'm going to notch these, but I'm not going to notch the one that I marked as the front because I want that to close over and completely cover the bottom. You have an option of whether you decorate that piece or not, but if you don't, then this piece should be not notched and cover the entire bottom of the box. So I am going to notch these other little flaps here. So again, just take a little notch or miter out of these, and basically what you're doing is you're cutting out that score line for all intents and purposes. It doesn't have to be a big notch, just enough so that your box closes a little bit more easily. So I'm skipping that one and putting my notches on these, on this last one. Okay, so at this point, this is what we have. Now, at the top of the box here, what I'm going to cut, because I want to get these two little side flaps, and since this is the back, what I'm going to do is I am just going to eyeball about 1/2 inch to match this little piece over here, and I'm going to cut straight down to the first score line. There we go. Now I'm going to cut this part away. I'm going to cut these two corners away. And so let me start with the little corners here. I'm going to cut that corner away. Here. And I'm going to cut this corner away on this side. Okay. It's interesting, cutting away from yourself so that you don't get on camera makes this a little bit more challenging. When you're doing this yourself, you can pull it right up next to where you are and really see what you're doing and get nice clean cuts. Okay, so here we're going to cut these pieces away because this is the only one we need to make the top flap of the box. So I am going to cut this on this side of the score line and try to get that as straight as I can because those edges will all show on our box. Okay, there we go. So this is what I'm left with. Now I need to cut this tab here, and I'm going to cut just a slight wedge on both sides of that little cut line and notch the flap on that side. I'm not going to notch it on this side. And I'm going to do the same thing here. I'm going to cut in and I'm going to notch at the bottom. Okay, there we go. So this is what you're left with when you've got all of your trimming done. Now what we're going to do is, and I'm going to leave these instructions right here as much as I can in case you want to take a screenshot. Now what we're going to do is we're going to fold and burnish these score lines. So just fold and burnish all the way on your box here. And finding little tiny ends that need to be trimmed off as I go here. Okay, and then more folding and burnishing. Now, there's a couple more things that I want to do before we start putting the box together, and you can see kind of how that box is going to go together now. It's going to form a cylinder like this, and these pieces will close into the box front, and then these flaps will close here on the bottom and give us our finished box. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do is I am going to round these corners here. I think it looks a little bit more professional when you do this. Use my corner rounder there. Oops, didn't quite close that all the way. And then I'm going to also try and get a little corner rounding done on this edge that's sticking out on the front. So I'm going to come up here and eyeball that in my corner rounder. Same thing there. And there you have three nicely rounded corners at the top of the closure of your box, and that will make it close a little bit easier. Then if this is going to be the front of the box, we could use a little tiny finger hole. I have a 3/4 of an inch punch, and I am going to cut a little thumb hole by just centering that there on that front panel and taking out the little thumb hole. Okay, there we go. Now, for the decorations on this box, what I'm doing on this one, I used this stamp from First Sight, and it's a leaf flourish, and I just think it's gorgeous. I love this stamp set. And so what I'm going to need to do is bring in my Perfect Plum bunch ink here, and what I've done is I cut panels. My sides are 1.5 inches wide, so I made these panels 1 3/8 by, and this is 1 3/8 by 4 7/8, because this part of the box is 5 inches and this part is a 1/2 inch. So I cut an 1/8 inch back for that. Then I cut a 1 3/8 inch square, and I cut several of them, and I've already stamped some of these. So I'm going to do this last one so you can see what I did, and bring out some scratch paper here, and let me ink up my stamp. And you can see on this stamp that there's this little curly Q that's kind of at the top, and what I did was I put that kind of here at the top of this so that it would give me the vine kind of crawling up the piece of paper. And then this edge here is kind of straight, so I could put it here at the bottom and get a nice complete panel. And this particular piece I just stamped right in the middle so that I would have the whole thing stamped. All right, and like I said, I have done these others to save a little bit of time in making the video. So now I'm going to adhere my panels, and I do have one panel, so I have to decide which of these I'd like at the front, and I think I want this one that has the complete curlicue. So I'm going to make a small indentation in the center of that one, and that will be the one that goes here on this one. It looks like it needs to be a little bit deeper than that. So, okay. There we go. That'll go on there nicely. So then I need to just take some snail here and put my panels on my box. And the only thing I would say is make sure you get plenty of glue around your finger hole and the bottoms and the edges on the sides. And then it's a matter of getting this placed on here so that it has a tiny bit of a margin, but basically covers that panel. Okay, so onward. I didn't think there was any need to match the patterns as I was cutting across. Now, if you're going to use a stamp for decoration that has a very distinct pattern, it would be good to cut your panel size, your panels, in one sheet that would have been big enough to cover this whole thing, stamp it, and then cut it apart and make sure your pieces stay in order. On this one, I didn't think it mattered much, so because this is so random that I think it could be just about any place as long as it's centered on the box. So on around my box here. I just love this pattern, and I love this perfect plum on this. I don't know, this paper is, and I'll show you the paper in a minute. It is, this is actually almost like a photocopy of lace, and it's kind of gray and taupe. Gosh, it's beautiful. It's just gorgeous. Okay, getting that one centered, and I think I'm going to put this one on the top. So this one centered on the top of my box. Okay, so now what I need is to add some adhesive along my tab here to close up my box, and what I'm going to use is Fast Fuse. I want something really strong, and so I am going to use Fast Fuse here, and we are going to close this box on itself. There we go, and there we have our basic box done. Now, this is the front of the box, so this is the last tab I want to have closed. So I am going to put Fast Fuse on the backs of these panels here. Try and keep my head out of the screen. And this is one of the places that helps keep your box square. So you want to be really careful. And on this, what I did was I closed the back flap first to come across to be as straight as I could get it across. Then one flap, and then the other holding the box itself as square as I could. Then this last one, because that's the one we didn't notch, covers the whole bottom. Now, on that, you wouldn't have to decorate that because that does cover the entire thing, and I will use my bone folder on the inside to make sure that that sticks down the way it has, and that helps reinforce the box because that's 4 flaps closing over one another, and that's nice and secure. But I went ahead and made this little piece, so I'm going to add this on the bottom, and again, you want to get your edges, and let's see, this is the front of the box. I think I want this to go this way. And it's a matter of just getting your piece on there square and putting it in place. And there we have our box completely made and completely decorated. Now, here's the acid test. Is we're going to put the bottle in here, and you can see that it fits nicely, and we are going to close these pieces around the box, and there you have your box done. Got a little finger hole to open it, your item inside, and this, while this has a nice bunch of flaps here to kind of keep this closed, I thought it was good to go ahead and put a ribbon around this to hold it. And because there's a thumb hole here, I didn't want to put a ribbon across this way because I didn't want it to push that in and down. So I put my ribbon going this way across the box. And let's see if this one works. And this is that gorgeous ribbon out of the Celebration catalog. That has the metal pieces through it, and I used the white with the gold, or the I guess it might be very vanilla with the gold. And so I'm going to fit my ribbon on here, and what I did was I tied a knot under this bow and then did my bow on top of the knot, and there you have it. There is our box all decorated. And in doing this, I'll show you the other ones that I did. I made a much larger one out of this. The only thing I would tell you is I did this out of a piece of paper that was 9 by 12 because of the size of the item that I have inside. And so the reason I put the decoration on the bottom of this one is that one of these flaps are not don't quite go all the way across. So a much bigger version, and that's okay if it doesn't completely cover at the bottom, because you can always add this piece to make it so that that doesn't show. And see, while I'm showing here, I'm going to grab another couple ones that I made. This one was the original prototype in the large size, and I put a little bit of paper around it. And then I made this one out of Cajun Craze, and I made 3 of the large ones. And large ones are a little unwieldy to make, but they work, and you can close them. And I had in this one something quite large that I was trying to make a box to cover, and that one is this bottle here. So that's quite a large bottle. And even at that, because I think this bottle is 7.5 inches. Yeah, 7.5 inches tall, and about, what was it? Probably 2 inches in diameter. So, and you can see the first ones I made only had the 1 flap closure, and I really wasn't very happy with that. It didn't seem as secure. This one was a little bit better, a little tighter fitting, and this is the one where I started doing the 3 flaps. And early ones only had a 1/2 inch tab, and so this was the final culmination of one that I think works just about the best. And so there you have it. Thanks so much for stopping by and watching my YouTube channel. I appreciate it. I'm a little behind on videos this week. Life intervenes, and so I'll be making several in a row to get them out. I have a pretty little treat box for Valentine's Day that will probably be the next video, and then on to some cards and some new techniques and some new stamp sets. So again, thanks for stopping and watching by. And if you don't have a Stampin' Up! Demonstrator, I'd love to be your demonstrator. Or you could join my team. Everything that's here can be ordered on my 24/7 shop, lbedinger.stampinup.net. And so until next time, bye.